My mum received a voicemail from a California landline. We're from the UK. The recording is of her shouting at the dog, posted by Kiev in the Chicken. This just happened, and we're pretty confused. Last night my mum received a missed call from a Californian landline number. We Googled the number and that's the only info that came up. We live in the UK, so thought it was a spam call. When I Googled the number, it came up as not suspicious or spam. On listening to the voicemail, it is a very low quality and crackly reception, but it's quite clearly her shouting at the dog to come inside from the garden. She says the dog's name, etc. How is this possible? Thanks for any advice. X. Edit. There is an Alexa dot? I think it's called? It does not have any cameras on it. It's in the kitchen, which would make sense for it being able to record her shouting on the dog, as the door to the garden is in the kitchen. There's no security cameras or Ring doorbells in the house. People have said to call the number, but I'm a bit scared, lol. Edit 2. Thanks for all the replies. I've checked her Alexa app. There was an Alexa call my phone request by my mum at 23:28. The voicemail was then received at 23:33. So the Alexa likely accidentally sent a previous recording to her voicemail, which is creepy, but we all know Alexa spies on us. Some people are asking to hear the recording. My mom doesn't want it posted. It's uninteresting, just a crackly recording of a wee Scottish woman shouting for the dog to come back in and saying, "Look, you're making me shout. I'll wake the neighbors." I had a vision of complex mathematical blueprints during a dislocated shoulder that instructed me how to put it back in. Posted by Lucid-Pupil. The odd part was that the symbols were not any recognizable numbers, but I understood the meaning of the geometry and the symbols they were represented. I'll go into that later. Let me start from the beginning. It was high school 2009, junior year. A group of acquaintances or friends from an adjacent friend group regularly went to the park to go LARPing, so I thought I'd join them after school. For those who don't know, LARPing is basically wrapping PVC with pool noodles and making swords, bows, axes, etc. and waging war with each other. Kinda nerdy, but pretty funny if you're not judgmental. Anyway, I get there and was bequeathed a sword complete with a pommel, per usual. 15 minutes in, and I'm running around, hacking and slashing, and get into a duel with a dude named Justin. He does some fancy shit by interlocking his sword and pommel with mine, and twists it, forcing the sword out of my grasp and dislocating my right arm in the process. I get pummeled in the gut and collapse to the ground. I end up on my back, my hand facing upward, but it feels like it should be facing down. My shoulder is completely out of socket and hurts like a motherfucker. I'm frozen because if I move, my arm twinges and it's all fucked up. I need to really assess what's wrong with it internally. It just feels weird. People are hovering over me now, asking what they can do to help. And I say, just leave me alone and I'll figure it out. I just need space and quiet to think. So they leave and keep playing in the distance. At this point, I had no idea what to do or what was wrong. It was hurting more and more by the second and forming a dull throbbing pain that was spreading through my body. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe deeply and uniformly because I was starting to get emotional and panic. I breathe for a bit and slow it to a deep methodical rhythm, eyes closed. That's when the geometrical blueprints came into my vision within my mind. I vividly remember it looked like glowing blue lines which formed the symbols and geometry of an arc, and an angular trajectory pathway along with symbols I didn't recognize, but understood. I had to keep my arm where it was and project my entire body in an arc so that my feet landed 180 degrees where they presently were. So that's exactly what I did. I bridged with my head, planted my feet, arched my back, and kicked off, sending my feet flying over my head to land on the other side, and crunch, pop, my shoulder popped back in. I climbed off the ground holding my shoulder, which was swollen to twice the size, and drove the whole way home laughing giddily from the endorphins. I got home and I couldn't stop laughing, and my dad thought I was high until I told him what had happened. Too long, didn't read. Shoulder popped out while LARPing, Blueprint geometry visions instruct me to throw my body 180 degrees in order to put it back in. So that's what I did. A song glitch, posted by Tree Turtleese. This is the only truly unexplainable thing I have experienced that reminds me of a glitch. It was a sound glitch. I was at a friend's house and I spent the night. We slept on the same pull-out couch so I didn't have to sleep in the living room alone. At around 6 a.m., we both woke up to a song blasting from seemingly nowhere at full force. It was shaking the pull-out couch with the bass. It was a song by the band The Zombies called I Must Move. The weirdest part about us waking up is we both woke up and immediately began crying. We were both covering our ears with our hands and crying, pushing every button on every remote, but nothing was on in the room. The TV was off, the radio was off, the record player was off, the computer was off. There was nothing on to be playing that song so loudly. My friend's roommate ran into the living room from her bedroom down the hall shouting, "What's going on?" And as soon as she crossed the threshold of the doorway into the living room, the music just stopped. It was the most bizarre thing I have ever experienced, from the music coming from nowhere to the crying and then the abrupt stop. Throwaway in case this thing comes back to bite me, posted by anonymous Redditor. I was 16 years old, PC gamer, spending most summertime with headphones blasting music and playing all day long. Usually nobody was at home, as parents were working all day. We had a cleaning lady who was usually working only the first hours of the morning, leaving by 11 a.m. One day at noon, around 2 p.m., as I go to take a pee, I hear clearly myself calling at the other end of the house, my kitchen. I was surprised to hear my voice so clearly and almost shouting, so I headed almost running to the kitchen. Surprisingly, nobody was there. Happened a couple of more times that week at different hours. I didn't tell anybody in my house about it. As I wasn't afraid, I was rather surprised at how I was imagining my own voice. I took the baseball bat my father had in his studio and put it underneath my bed. A couple of months later, I noticed that the cleaning lady put an image of Jesus in a small corner of the kitchen. I didn't ask why, as we live in a pretty religious region, so it's nothing surprising to see. Fast forward 10 years. I was no longer living in my house, and during one casual conversation, my brother asks me why I always had a baseball bat under my bed for so many years. I told him my story and his face was white. He was about to pass out. Happens that the cleaning lady, years before, while I was in school, she was cleaning the kitchen when she heard myself calling me from the other side of the house. She actually quit the job, as she was really creeped out. My mom begged her to stay, and her only condition was if she could bring and put a photo of Jesus in the kitchen, to which my mother accepted. Story was confirmed by my mother as soon as I heard this. The family agreed on not telling me anything back in the day to not scare me. As they heard my version, we agreed not to talk about it ever again. I came back to that house to sleep around 10 years later, and as I was making breakfast by myself, I just said out loud, "Anon, if you need my help, just tell me." Up to this date, I'm still wondering if there's another version of me. The story doesn't scare me. What scares me is the fact that some other version of me needs my help. I tripped over a rock, but the rock is from an alternate reality. Posted by Zeke03. I wasn't able to get this off my mind for a while. This happened a month ago. I'm at my house. I was heading for my brother's room because I needed to ask him something. On my way to his room, I tripped. I felt that my foot hit or was stuck into some sort of a rock or something that caused the fall. I turned back to see why I tripped. I saw nothing on the floor, not even a single thing. My foot hurt like hell, so I know it's real that my foot hit something. I kind of shrugged it off for a few days because I thought I may have missed something. Until after a few days, I noticed that my left foot is developing a bruise on the area that hit the rock, and I remembered the tripping incident. I concluded that the rock may have been from an alternate reality or dimension, universe, timeline, or I slipped to another timeline, dimension, reality, or universe for just a very short amount of time for me to notice. Since then, I wasn't able to get this event off my mind. I'm sort of convinced that this may have been a glitch. I told this to my friends and they just laughed at me for being lame and that I need some milk. I posted this here hoping you guys could relate to me. This just happened, posted by Nicola90. Let me start by saying there's no other person more skeptical or cynical than me, to the point of irritating everyone by questioning everything with logic. But just recently, things have been disappearing from our house at an increasingly alarming rate. Now, the obvious answers are absent-mindedly misplaced, theft, or prank. These are a range of items, from clothing, jewelry, books, pills, and a host of miscellaneous mundane items. None have ever reappeared despite the most thorough searches. Now, I accept that some of these have just been naturally lost, taken out of the house and left somewhere. I can definitely rule out theft or prank. Despite the upsetting nature of the consequences of some of these losses, like everyone else, in the end, you put it down to one of those things and move on because there's nothing more you can do about it. That is, until this morning, and this happened. It is all the more weird because the object involved is so mundane. My son recently broke off the bottom cover of his PS5 and I promised to fix it. So this morning, I actually got round to planning to repair it. I decided to take it from his bedroom down to the kitchen because the lighting is so much better down there. I placed the cover on top of the PS5 and carefully carried them both down the stairs to the kitchen. I put the PS5 on the kitchen table, leant to take the cover off the top of the PS5 so I could flip it over to fix it on the underside. And it had just vanished. I just thought, how the hell did that slip off without me noticing it or hearing it? But just went back up the stairs to find it. It could only be between the bedroom and the kitchen, a fairly short distance. Now, let me just tell you, I have just spent the best part of an hour searching for it and it has gone, just completely vanished. I am alone in the house and there are not pets here, so between me placing the cover on top of the PS5 and setting it down on top of the table was about a minute. Obviously, I didn't see it disappear, and I was concentrating on not falling down the stairs while carrying a PS5. But I can say without a shred of doubt that the cover has vanished into thin air. Of that, there is no doubt. I am now questioning all the other disappearances of more valuable and larger items that have happened recently and at an increasing rate. Having Googled this phenomena and had no idea it is occurring all over the world and also at an increasing rate. The problem is that it is all too easy and natural to dismiss a missing item as just lost, hidden, or stolen and write it off as just that because there is no explanation, is there?